I've always really been into music, always surrounded myself with musicians. Had a few projects earlier on, but honestly nothing really serious until Giant Monsters on the Horizon.
I've been in bands left and right that go everywhere from you know, biker bar bands when I would play, you know, organ, piano, and that sort of thing, to you know, I've toured this country as part of an industrial act in the mid-90s, and you know, I've done rhythm and blues. I've done so many different styles, and but I've always found my love is always in electronic, always in you know, generating noises with computers, if you will. Talking
to a few people, one of them being Heath Aldrich, who is a musician here, goes by Solid State Disaster. And when I moved here, he invited me to go onto his video game podcast. And I started as a regular on the video game podcast, and we review video games every week and all that kind of stuff. And he said, hey, I've got a friend named Vinny. You guys like the same music, you have all the same interests. Let's set up a play date. And we found out that, like we stated earlier, that we knew the same people, had been in the same places in Florida, been to the same shows. It was just uncanny. And you know, I talked to him about how I enjoyed creating music, and just kind of took it from there. We started making stuff. It took a little while for us to find our groove and find out, you know, what type of craziness we wanted to create. And once we hit our groove, we were just pumping out stuff left and right. It was insane.
Great thing is I mean, I've just been looking to get something rolling along musically. I've had a few projects right before Giant Monsters that really didn't do exactly what I wanted, and I don't know, it just kind of never really gelled. But the great thing is working with Madison is that she's great on arrangement and getting the vibe of the song just right, so I can work on my 4 bars here and my 8 bars over there, and she knows what it takes to turn it into a full-fledged song. And then when we go live, because she's handling a lot of the loops and a lot of the, you know, all of the various things as far as the arrangement of the sequences going, it allows me to be more of the musician, playing the keys, playing the guitar, and even on occasion singing. You know, it's a fantastic role, being able to, for the first time, actually the first time ever, really stepping out into the forefront.
And I get really into it. Like, I get pretty energetic and like banging on things on stage. We were trying to get really complicated at first, and I mean, we focused on making music that we wanted to hear after a while, as opposed to just being complicated or different for different sake.
We're also going to be doing a soundtrack for a film. This guy by the name of Wolfgang here in the St. Louis area has put together this great film about the hazards of time travel. So we'll be, we've actually started working on some of the basic themes for the score there. Right now we're having a break until March 2018 as far as playing live, but that doesn't mean we are not busy, because, oh, let me tell you, we've got albums to put out, and yes, I said plural, by March, and you know, we've got a lot of stuff going.
What was the first release?
It was just self-titled.
That was, I think it was 2015.
It was late 2015.
Yeah.
And it's an instrumental album. I know we were looking around for a singer. We were looking for someone that kind of could be the voice for it, and we tried out multiple people, and they just never seemed to mesh very well with what we were trying. And eventually, after a year of that, we were just like, let's just put out an instrumental album. And at that point, we started the second album, which was called Hunter Killer. We started it with the idea in our head that he was going to be doing vocals and he was going to be the front man. So we started building it differently from the ground up, for sure.
Yeah. We have some tracks from another guy by the name of Andrew, who actually made it to the Hunter Killer EP, and he did a fantastic job, I'll say. But I think, you know, at one in particular point, we just, you know, once we put the title track together, we just said, okay, this is the direction we're going. So
yeah, the Hunter Killer album. So it's an EP. We started with the title track Hunter Killer, and we put it together, and we said, okay, we've got more tracks we have to do. In the meantime, let's go ahead and split this up into a remix kit, and let's send it off to some of our friends that are in other bands, and let them have fun, let them do some remixes. And I think we expected like maybe 3 or 4 remixes back at most, and we ended up getting like 8 remixes back, and they were all just so good that we couldn't even cut them. We were like, well, we're just gonna do like a 15-track EP then, and it's gonna be longer than our first album.
Yeah.
But it's like 8 remixes and like 5 original tracks.
The new Giant Monsters on the Horizon album we're gonna have called Revolt, and we're also planning a compilation album called Retronomicon, where what we're going to do is take some of our good friends, the ones that we've asked to do remixes and things like that, and just see if they are willing to cover some good retro music from, I'd say the mid-'80s, somewhere around there, some of the 90s, and things like that. Like, we do a cover of Games Without Frontiers by Peter Gabriel, and we're also, you know, we've, what's the, oh, yes, and we also did Shut 'Em Down by Public Enemy, just as a complete change of pace. And then there's also going to be a remix album for Revolt. There's a remix album for Revolt called Remix. Sorry, just when you see the Revolt cover, and it's RE:VOLT, so like regarding volt, like regarding voltage, so there's Revolt, and then we're going to have RE:MIX for remix, like regarding mix, you know, and that's a little play on words. Well, we get together at least twice a week, and then from there, I know that even in the off nights, if I have some kind of noise or some kind of idea in my head, I'll come down here to the studio here and the noisemaker place, and just pop it together. Same with her. If she's got an idea, she'll always jot it down, and the wonderful thing is we both share a Dropbox, so that this way ideas that I have, I'll just immediately copy to that folder, and she'll be able to pick it up from anywhere she is, and then vice versa, and it makes for a good synergy. I think that if you're in a band in the 21st century, get Dropbox.
We bounce ideas off each other all the time. We are texting each other all the time when we should be working, and just coming up with ideas, throwing stuff around. Hey, I like this sound. Hey, so I watched this movie last night, and I got this type of vibe from it. We should explore something like that.
Or, did you hear the latest Taylor Swift? And then you saying, Vinny, my God, why are you saying that? But if there's a movie out or there's a sound, we're always, you know, just constantly thinking about, hey, what can we do to make things better? You know, it's one of those where we get together twice a week, but I think it's constantly in our mind.
Yeah, I mean, we probably do hours and hours of brainstorming. We've created basically a sound kit that we start with every single time, and it's stuff that, for the most part, we've built from the ground up.
95% of what we do is just, if it's drums, it's original single hits of drums that we'll program in. If it's, you know, other synthesized sounds, I mean, granted, we do use the occasional sample to set the mood. You know, I know that we've done some live sets where we've actually started with Edward R. Murrow from, what was it, I would say, probably the 1950s or something.
Oh, yeah, that one.
And just, you know, a number of different, like, found sounds to kind of set the mood. But I never want to use those in place of what we can program and achieve by programming ourselves. I just don't really feel it as necessary to use loops for replacing rhythm.
We love variation, so while we use some 4 on the floor and everything, you'll hear a lot of variation in the background, as far as hats being changed up, or there's a double snare here and there's a fill and all this kind of stuff. Live, I trigger additional loops, and it's either stuff that we build, or we'll just be like, hey, I like this loop from like Cell Dweller, let's go ahead and throw that in. And this is only stuff that we use live to kind of create another level of intensity on top, just to like bring the percussion up even more. And we have that running through a stutter edit. And so a lot of times the loops will be going on and I will stutter it to create a fill, or I'll do like a 16th note stutter on it to go ahead and like, just change it up. And it's a lot of what I do too. It's a lot of fun.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Give it a more human element to what we do. Someone who takes all these controller devices like the Push, like the Akai MPD 218, which is what she uses for stutter, and bring about more of a live performance by actually working these buttons in time to the music.
Just having more control over it in general. And on the Push, I have a lot of control from the mixing side as well. Controlling volume levels. If something gets a little too loud, I control it.
Guilty as charged. Yeah.
A lot of times, just when you're working with a sound guy, he'll set you at a certain level, and by the end of the song, I've definitely raised the volume of the whole thing by like 25%.
One of our biggest secrets is when we sound check at about 75% of the total volume, so that they can then turn up accordingly. And then, we just slowly, incrementally increase the volume as we go.
Vinny, you are primarily playing melodic keyboard parts.
Yeah. Primarily doing the keyboard parts. On occasion, I'll throw in slide guitar. The reason why I go with slide guitar is because, well, I'm not really a guitarist per se, but at least I have an understanding enough musically of what's going on, so I can take that and properly tune guitar, and I can at least add to.
He does great. He's being modest.
I'm getting better. In 2018, I'll be throwing in some bass guitar as well, and then on occasion singing. Previous bands that I've been in, I've always been in Madison's shoes, where I've been the controller. At a certain point, I was just saying, okay, no, I want to be on stage as a musician. And so that's where, thankfully, with Giant Monsters on the Horizon, that's where my role is now. It gives me the liberty knowing that I've got full confidence in what Madison's doing with the loops and with the mixing, that allows me to just lash out, musically, and just, get out some of my demons on that slide guitar when necessary.
So growing up in South Florida, I was very exposed to the Miami bass scene, like 808s, Two Live Crew, break beats, that kind of stuff. I kind of grew up in the whole Marilyn Manson type of thing. So while he's not necessarily a musical influence, just the theatrics of everything I really enjoyed, and making stage shows more than just a person playing music. Musically, my interests and influences are going to be like old school electro, Africa Bambaataa, that type of stuff, and industrial music, Skinny Puppy, the Envy Nation, the Covenant, all that kind of stuff. Those probably my favorite band is 9 Inch Nails, though.
Musically, I started in a very unusual place. It was the mid-1980s, and my best friend Joe, he had a Walkman on. You remember Walkmans from way back when. And he was grooving to something. I had no idea what it was he was grooving to. And I said, "What are you listening to?" And instead of telling me, he stopped it, and he rewound it to a certain point, stopped it again, put it on my ears, and he pressed play, and it was the keyboard solo to the song "In the Cage" from "The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway" by Genesis, and my mind was completely blown away. Kind of really set the pace for me, and I knew I wanted to become a musician. I kept asking friends around and saying, so, you know, what do I do? Do I pick up an instrument? What instrument do I pick up? And a lot of people said, well, if you do not know one by now, it's probably too late. Well,
as a high school kid.
As a high school kid, yes, probably too late.
Best years are behind you.
Yeah. A teacher that I went to, John Sarno, he's still a friend of mine on the old Facebookins there, but he was a music theory teacher, and he said, you know computers, you get, you know, good grades in math, and things like that. I want to show you how you could use a computer to write music. And he showed me the way a sequencer works and everything like that, and I got hooked. Next thing you know, I'm starting to learn how to do it on my Commodore 64 computer with a Casio synthesizer and a 4-track tape deck. There are musicians that are currently out on the market who have this sort of mid-1980s synth wave kind of sound, as they call it, and it kind of harkens back to Jan Hammer and Tangerine Dream and Jean-Michel Jarre and all these artists that I was listening to in the first iteration. So it feels like home again. I think it's just a great time in music. And I can draw an influence from so many things. Yeah, where it gets eclectic, because there's Genesis on one hand, there's a drum and bass act like Pendulum on the other.
I'd like to point out that the Retronomicon tracks that we're doing is Peter Gabriel and Public Enemy.
Yeah, so it kind of shows you. This is, okay, so I have my M-Audio Venom, which in itself is a very noisy synthesizer. It's not really... It's good for creating certain gritty kinds of sounds, but I wouldn't necessarily use it as a catch-all for, you know, dance music or anything like that. But what I do really love about it is that it has multiple inputs that you could put into the back of it, which will all filter out into 2 tracks. So what I do is I run this synthesizer in through this MIDI Verb over here, the Alesis MIDI Verb 4, for my effects. You know, various things, reverbs and things like that. It's a good 20-year-old effect box. Running into some vacuum tubes over here, which will then run into my system. I have an old cassette 4-track that I will run from there into this M-Audio. And I also have you know, like, say for example, I can pull out my cigar box guitar over here that has basically just 3 strings, run it through here, run it through the effects, run it through the tubes, pop it into the system. So any unusual or just out of the way kind of dirty noises, chances are it's coming from one of these things here. Most of everything that we do is running very clean software emulation of synthesizers. You know, most of the time it's just all in the box here with propeller head Reason and a number of different VSTs. So, you know, I have all the licenses and everything like that. Don't pirate stuff. And I love the various rack extensions and things that I have from Propellerhead's Reason, and the thing that's so beautiful about it is primarily just, you know, being able to hit the tab key and rewire things the way that you want, you know. Big thing for me is, you know, I love the sounds that I have here on my Kong that that I've got programmed in, but you know, I'll still need the redrum in order to properly pop it in and get it moving into place here. So live, I'm using the Elisa's V61 controller and a smaller model, a V25 controller, because I'll then route those into Ableton Live, and then from there I'll run a couple of VSTs to run usually a pad sound on the larger keys, and on the smaller keys, the V25, I'll run some kind of Moog style lead, because I love the old progressive rock leads way back when, and we've kind of incorporated that certain sound into what we do with Giant Monsters on the Horizon. My heroes were Tony Banks and Tony Kaye, the other keyboardist to Yes, because I think that they always had a little bit more of a conservative approach to making sure that they're hitting the right notes as opposed to just a flurry of notes. The Elisa's, this here it's an old device that I have. This is like, this is an iPad from way back when, you know, that I haven't really updated in years. Sometimes just use one of these various and different virtual synthesizers, since I have MIDI control going into it, and then I have audio coming out of it, popping in here. It's basically just another synthesizer. The PreSonus Audio Box 1818 VSL, that is actually the hub of my setup here. And what I'll do is this goes right into the computer, comes right out of the computer. The main channel here goes into this mixer, and with that I basically have the main outs going to these speakers, and then the control room output going to these speakers. So this way, when you do a final mix, I'm very comfortable with these speakers and the way they sound here when I'm creating, but when I'm mixing, I like to use these speakers here because it's not that they're great speakers, but it's because they approximate what every other speaker system in the consumer world does. So if you get something sounding good on those speakers, it's going to sound great elsewhere. I have the Clavia Nord rack, primarily, so there's that. And then I have also Kurzweil K2500R synthesizer, and then over there is the Ensoniq ESQ1. All of those are MIDI outfitted into the computer here, and then I can then just grab the audio from these, you know, so this way I'll fire that in, and then, you know, fire a MIDI signal out to it, and then have it go audio into the computer here. But, you know, to be honest, I've set those things up, but Madison and I, when we do our ideas, most of the time they're still in the box, in Reason. You know, I really think the sound is a fantastic thing. Don't get me wrong. I love the Kurzweil here that you know, I used to love the sound from when I first heard Stevie Wonder play it so many years ago. But I listen back now to what it does in comparison to what I can do here, and to me, I don't think it really holds a candle to what like Reason will do.
Yeah, we finished up our touring season, so the live rig is currently disassembled because we're in the process of upgrading some of the parts. So we have a PreSonus that a lot of the stuff's going through. We have some DI boxes. We have the DMX 512 controller there, as well as a nice little DMX light. So easy to carry around, easy to set up on stage. Put it on a keyboard stand and it is ready to go. On top of that, I run the Ableton Push, which once again, all disassembled, so there's no wires or anything anywhere. Besides that, I will have the MIDI controller next to it, the MIDI pad.
MPD 218, yeah.
And then I use that for the stutter edits. On top here, I will have a Mac Mini, because we don't run stuff through a laptop yet. I have a Mac Mini, and then I have a monitor that I stick on top of here. It's adjustable and is covered in other band stickers because we like to cross-promote. Run everything, run the guitar, the keyboards, runs everything through a USB hub that's normally stapled there, but it's on the, the other system there. Run everything through that into the Mac, running the VSTs through Ableton Live, and that is the control center. That is where I control everything and trigger the loops, all that fun stuff. The lighting runs through that as well and is synced with the music.
Synced out in Ableton?
Synced in Ableton, yes. It sends the MIDI signals out through the DMX 512. And it's all synced with the music. When I trigger a scene in Ableton, it goes ahead and starts the lights, and then I just control the loops from there.
Basically, it's a stereo system that we send, and we do all the mixing on stage. Most of the time, we have everything just kind of set right, you know, from the get-go, so that if Madison needs to, yes, she can make an adjustment. If you know, if I'm too overzealous with my singing, and she says, "Whoa, that's kind of blowing out things," she can like just turn me down. But yeah, we're just two channels going right out to them.
Sound guys love us.
They love us. You know, like in 2018, I'll be doing some things with the guitar, for example, that will require some various chopping elements. So we just can actually draw in the envelope that handles that kind of stuff in the song itself, so that as I'm playing, there's still some chopping going on. That just, you know, kind of, she'll be able to fire that out, and it's sort of like an interactive guitar piece, I guess you could say.
Yeah. We got some more of his synths back here. Here's the V25 that he had mentioned earlier.
That's the top keyboard.
Giant monsters on the horizon. Vinnie Soletto and Madison Olivia Davis.
Yes.
I want to thank you very much for showing us the inner sanctum here and talking us through your process. And it was really interesting to hear about your influences, and excited to hear the releases upcoming in 2018, and to see you guys perform live again in March. It's going to be fantastic.
Thank
It's
you.
going to be cool. Thanks so much.